I have a problem. Lately, I've been having blackouts. Time seems to escape me. I'd be having a normal day, then suddenly, blackness. I wake up having skipped considerable hours, not knowing why it happened, nor what I did in my precious lost time. The weirdest part, I keep waking up with burns on my body. Burns from cigarettes. Even with these recent gaps in my timeline, I managed to live an uneventful life. I'd wake up, go to work, get back, drink a cola, smoke, lose time, wake up in bed, start over. Things were fine until I turned on the news. The latest victim of the cigarette killer has been found. The young man appears to have cigarette burns all over his body, with the main cause of death being the severance of the carotid artery. My heart stopped. The cigarette killer? Is this how he kills them? He burns them, then... Am I under threat? Whenever I lose time, I wake up with more burns than before. What the hell is happening? I decided to record myself. I set up a camera aimed right at me in my room. I wanted to know what happens when I black out. I sat in bed, drank my drink, and lit a cigarette, and waited. Blackness. I'm awake. I'm still in bed. That's good, right? I went over to check the footage on my computer. It's been deleted. What the fuck? Amidst my confusion, I turned to the news channel. The cigarette killer strikes again. A young woman has been found dead inside an abandoned factory, with the killer's signature burn marks covering her body. Oh my god. I recognize her. That's my neighbor. There's a pain that's hurting my shoulder. I take off my shirt and checked. It's another cigarette burn. This can't be. I locked all my doors and threw away the keys. I requested time off work. I got a pair of handcuffs and cuffed myself to the radiator. I swallowed the key that unlocks it. There is no way I am leaving this fucking radiator. I had some food and a cola to keep me energized, and a bucket to relieve myself in. I threw away my cigarettes as the thought of the killings terrified me. Blackness. I'm up, but not. Where am I? I looked around. I'm tied to a table. I can't move. I scream for help. but nothing. Smoke blew onto my face. A man greeted me with a cigarette in his hand. "Have you been losing time? Did you think you were going crazy?" What is this? Who are you?" "It's me. I am the cigarette killer." "What?" "I drugged your drinks. I've been burning you slowly over time while you were out." "So I'm not the killer?" "No, dumbass." "I love that you thought so. But it's time now. You ready?" He burned one last cigarette on my forehead. I felt a blade cut through my throat. I walked into my dad's bedroom. His frail, demented spirit pulsated through his withered body. "Hi, how are we feeling today?" Hey, son. I'm feeling better, actually." "That's not good for me." "Dad, I've been meaning to talk to you about something. I've always wanted to report you and turn you in, but I've been scared. Scared you'd hurt me like you hurt them." What are you talking about?" "I'm not scared of you now. Not in this state. You need to tell me about the women you killed." "What?" A cough interrupted his slurred speech. "Please, try to remember. You have a chance to finally bring some good into this world. Some peace for the families of the victims." I didn't kill anyone," he coughed out. "He's making this harder than I thought." "Dad, they found DNA at the crime scene. We all know it's yours. You were sloppy, and you screwed up. If you consent, they will test the DNA against yours. The police need a little bit more to finally nail you to the wall." "Why are you doing this?" "Because you finally need to pay." Dad started crying. "I can't believe this. I'm so sorry." "There's one more thing. All those years ago, one of your victims, they found her body. A lock of hair had been cut off from her head. If you just remember where you hid it, you'd make all of this easier." "I'm sorry, I can't remember." "Is it in your safe? Can you remember the passcode?" "It's your mother's birthday. I can't forget that." I unlocked the safe. There was nothing there except for his passport and some money. "Oh my God. Is this it, Dad?" I pulled out long strands of tied hair and showed it to him. He saw this and started sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. If only you were this regretful all those years ago. This is the last time I'll ever be talking to you. I hope you despise whatever life you have left. You deserve it." I left the room while hearing his wailing behind me. I took off my shirt and removed the wire I had been wearing. I got a text from Detective Dokes. "Thank you. We finally have what we need to get him." Everything went smoothly after that. My dad agreed to have the DNA tested against him, and it matched. They found a lock of hair in his safe and matched it to the victim. Even in his frail state, they still gave him a life sentence. That's a weight off my shoulders. I have to admit, I was sloppy in my early years. I can't believe I let that whore be found. Thank God my dumb old man was alive for me to frame him. He was my get-out-of-jail-free card. But now, I have to be more careful. I don't have anyone to fall back on.
I pride myself in making sure that everyone smiles whenever I take a picture. I'm not a photographer or anything, but still, I want everyone to smile when I take pictures of friends or family gatherings. When one person doesn't smile, I become angry and wish them all the worst in the world. For example, when I am the one taking pictures and I see a couple of people not smiling, I shout out, "Imagine your worst enemy is dead," or "Imagine you won £1 million," instead of cheese. And that brings out the smiles in people. Recently, whenever my friends and I gather up to socialize, I am the one who takes the group picture. Because, obviously, it has to be me. There was a person in my group of friends who hasn't been smiling. I became angry inside, and how dare he not smile whenever I take a picture of the whole group? What a piece of shit, and he deserves to die. Then I compose myself, and I remind myself that there must be a reason why this person in our friend group is not smiling. Nobody is sad for no reason, and there has to be one. I take it upon myself to figure out why this friend of mine is not smiling. Whenever someone is not smiling in my group picture, it creates an unequal unbalance in my life. And I need to balance it quickly. This individual, who is my friend, will be smiling, I told myself. Whenever he was part of the picture, I would say things like, "Imagine you never had kids." and that got everyone smiling. Apart from this one guy. Then I would shout out, "Imagine you are on a holiday far away from here." And that got everyone smiling. Apart from him. As I took the picture, I was fuming, with fire in my belly. I wanted this friend of mine to go to hell and be stabbed multiple times. Then I bravely went up to him and asked him what was wrong. And he expressed himself, saying he really hated his boss. He hates his boss so much that simply imagining his boss being dead wasn't enough. So I tracked his boss down, as my sad, depressed friend told me everything about him. When this horrid boss was going home from work, I managed to sneak up behind him and shoot him with a silencer and left his body covered in leaves under some trees. Then, the next time I took a group photo, that friend of mine was now smiling. I'm a long-haul truck driver. I've been doing it for almost 15 years and have honestly enjoyed it. I've hauled everything from dried goods like cereal and macaroni to things like cell phones and computers. It's been a pretty well-paying career, and I've honestly enjoyed it. However, there was this one night around 10 years ago. I was hauling office supplies, such as pens and papers, halfway across the country. I'd been driving for a pretty long time, but I had a deadline to beat. I remember it was getting pretty late, but my favorite podcast was keeping me company. I guess listening to guys argue about sports made me a little less lonesome. The road got that way sometimes. Luckily, I had a beautiful fiancée waiting for me at home. But on that night, she would be the furthest thing from my mind. I remember cruising down a dark and desolate highway. Things like stores and houses were nowhere in sight. In moments like this, it felt as if I were the only person in the entire world. Although I was about to be proven very wrong. Within my view, the road was clear and empty. Suddenly, something darted in front of my truck from out of nowhere. Of course, with such a big machine, I wasn't able to simply slam on brakes and stop. To my shock, I ended up hitting whatever ran out in front of me. It must have been big, as the entire 18-wheeler shook upon collision. I came to a stop as quick as I could, fearing the worst had happened. That a person, most likely, made the mistake of stepping in front of my rig. As I killed the engine, I took a minute before exiting the vehicle. After all, if I did hit someone, my life was going to be over. Getting married, having a few kids, and watching them grow. Those things wouldn't happen with me sitting in a prison cell. But regardless, I had to check on who or whatever this was. Though I had my doubts, they survived a head-on collision with a mighty semi. Within my first few steps, I heard a small squelch sound. Upon looking down, I saw a pool of blood already starting to form. Not to mention the fact that my size 10 boot was already standing in it. That's when it hit me. This had to be a human. No animal would lose this amount of blood. It was hard to fathom. But I was positive I had just killed someone. Within a few steps, however, I would be proven wrong. Pinned under the front of my truck was not the body of a human being. Instead, it looked to be some sort of creature. Upon further investigation, I could clearly see that it was dead. As for what it was, I couldn't tell you. The thing was a beast. It had to be around 6 foot tall, seemingly a canine-like creature with fangs protruding from its mouth. It could have been a large dog, but that didn't seem right, even though it was stuck. I could clearly see its broad chest and shoulders, as well as 2 long and hairy legs, almost like a man's. The only thing I could compare it to would be that of a werewolf. Absolutely stumped and unsure of what to do, I called the police. While waiting around, I couldn't help but stare at this odd being. I'd never seen anything like it before, and now even a putrid smell emanated from its corpse, like that of an animal that had never bathed before. I'd be so glad when officers finally did arrive. Maybe they could make some sense of this situation. I would soon be greeted by 2 older men giving me annoyed looks. I'm sure they had a long day and didn't care about some dead animal. But those thoughts would change as soon as they saw this thing. Both men's eyes grew wide and their skin pale. I heard one ask the other if this could be some guy in a costume. I watched as they tried to pull it out from under my truck. As they did, the smell from earlier became even worse. Though seeing that things entire body for the first time left us in awe. It was so big. The arms alone were thicker than some bodybuilders, as well as sharp claws that I was sure could rip us apart with ease. I'll never forget how the one man looked as he spoke into his walkie-talkie. He then approached me and shook his head before speaking. "Mister, we don't know what you hit, but we're gonna need somebody smarter than us to figure it out. Mind waiting by the car?" he asked. Now, I did have a load to deliver, but it seemed best to comply. If I was being honest, it would be nice to figure out what was lying there. After another 20 minutes passed, a second vehicle arrived on the scene. Instead of your usual police cruiser, I saw a mysterious, all-black car. A man would step out, wearing a sharp black suit to match. He looked down at the creature for only a brief moment before letting out a loud sigh. Without saying a word, he began to approach me. I'd be lying if I said the man wasn't intimidating. Something about the look in his eyes. It was cold and calculating. Like he walked through hell and came back unscathed. I remember he looked at me and spoke in a deep voice. "They've got a lot of cleanup to do here. Let's get to the station and talk about what you saw." Once again, I didn't resist. I willingly went along with this strange man. He drove me to a nearby police station, where I was seated in an interrogation room. I was alone at first, but soon the man would return with 2 cups of coffee. He looked down while stirring his java and began talking. He told me that what I saw tonight was nothing more than an exotic pet, an endangered one that was actually very illegal to own. I couldn't help but giggle. I didn't believe what he said for a second. I told him that was a stretch, and that it looked more like a werewolf to me. He wasn't amused, as he slammed his hand on the table and shouted. He told me there was no such thing as a werewolf, that I needed to realize that this wasn't a game. He pushed how this was an illegal pet and wanted me to agree with him. It was the point that he said I could lose my job if I didn't comply. Without much of a choice, I assured him that what I hit was only a pet. Afterwards, he asked for my shoes and even gave me a pat down. It was all so strange. I didn't understand why he was being such a jerk. In fact, I felt downright threatened by him. After a few minutes, he brought me a pair of cheap jailhouse shoes. He told me mine were ruined by the blood and that he threw them out. I was pretty upset, as those were an expensive pair of work boots. But it was pretty obvious I had no room to negotiate. He didn't let me finish my shipment either, saying my truck was totaled out. I knew this was a lie. The front end was only lightly damaged. I ended up receiving a bus ticket and went back home. I was off the road for 2 weeks without hearing a thing. Finally, my boss would call and put me back to work. Weeks turned into months and then years. My fiance and I got married and even had a little boy. I continued to drive 18-wheelers, never having another incident like that again. My life was mostly normal, but sometimes weird things would happen. I'd receive phone calls in the middle of the night asking if I'd seen anything strange. I would say no and try to identify the caller, but they always hung up. At times I would catch suspicious black vehicles following my rig while I was driving. Perhaps it was all just a coincidence, and I prayed it was. Even so, I didn't believe what I hit that night was just a pet. As for its true identity, I'm sure it would forever remain a secret. If I'm being honest, maybe that was for the best.
I remember the first time I started cooking. My parents were the ones that taught me the basics, like steak and bacon. Then, when I moved out, that's when I started to push outside my comfort zone. I had zero clue where to start, so I just went with different recipes for steaks. The more I experimented with different spices and different ways of cooking, I fell more in love with food. I just kept cooking and cooking until I just had too much to eat. Instead of wasting the food, however, I gave it out to strangers outside, inviting them in my home and asking them how it was. Most enjoyed the food, while few denied my request for them to taste test. So I just let them go. I kept this up for a year before I met a good friend. He was a hunter and told me that food tastes better when you get it yourself. I figured, what could go wrong? So I joined him on his hunting trip, and he showed me how to skin and clean the meat of any animal I shot. He also taught me not to waste anything I hit, since it's just bad etiquette, and to also not let the animal suffer. So, if I wasn't lethal, it was best to put it down instead of waiting. I mainly hit deer since they were in abundance near where I lived, and that brought more popularity to my home. sold off the antlers to some folk and the skin to others, and kept the meat to cook. So many people wanted me to sell my food, so I did, to buy more spices and herbs. After a week of this, I wanted to expand my palate. I went to the woods near my home and looked for a new animal. I got the few birds and the occasional rabbit. Yet my favorite was an unexpected gain. I was trying to hit a deer, but I missed and hit something far better. It was my dear friend, the hunter. He was clutching his side and grunting in pain. When he turned to look at me, I could see all the pain he was enduring, and his eyes were twitching faster than the whiskers on a rabbit. His smile faded when he saw me ready my rifle. Still, I followed his teachings and chose to put him down instead of him suffering. Then, like normal, I took my earnings into my shed and skinned them. I loved how cleanly my blade cut through the skin. It was easy, and the squelching of taking it off was always a satisfying noise, since in my opinion, it was the hardest part. Then, I drained any excess blood before taking my favorite cuts and grilling them. With my friend, however, that was a different story. I didn't know where to start, so I just started removing organs and placing them into jars to ship them out anonymously to random hospitals. With the actual meat, I took the big juicy bits first, and any I didn't like I fed to the animals in the wild. Then used his bones, hang up a skeleton in the corner to refer back to. The smell of the grill on the muscles and fat was amazing. The public loved it too, so much in fact that they kept asking for more. And of course, I had an obligation to continue. It started small by taking the people that no one would miss or notice on my hunting trips. A few of them were clever and caught on quick, but I enjoyed playing hide and seek. My favorite of the bunch was a guy named Andrew. Real smart guy, and nearly got me. But he wasn't careful about where he stepped, and his ankle was crushed in one of my modified bear traps. His tears falling onto the trap was hurtful to hear, and so were his pleas. But I could tell he was suffering, so I did what I had to. He was the best meal yet, and the only one I ate raw. He had a great natural flavor I couldn't hold back. His blood was all over me when I ate him, and I didn't care. After him, I went after those mainly hated by our small town. The ones with real dirty laundry. They weren't always the smartest folks around, but they did put up a fight. However, Andrew taught me that my hunting zone wasn't prepped enough. So after every hunt, I modified the area a little more each time. Sounds of animals and such to disorient and distract my game. The game of hide and seek changed to cat and mouse, and they all just made it too easy. I wasn't having fun anymore, and as a result, my cooking got bland, and people forgot about me. That's how life was for a month, all boring and unfulfilling, with nothing to really strive for. But you piqued my interest. He ran his tongue across your face. You have a certain flavor that reminds me of my favorite thing. It's Andrew. You remind me of Andrew. So now I want you to play your part. I'm going to release you, and you're going to run into the woods and hide. Now make it interesting, Andrew, or you will regret it. You feel uncomfortable with his saliva on your face, but it was even worse now that he labeled you after his favorite kill. The man looked delirious, with his grin widened with each slice his knife made on your restraints. His saliva falling on your face, adding to the river he made prior, making the situation more unbearable, 'cause now it confirmed how much more he lusted over this moment. Once you were fully unrestrained, he turned around and set a timer for 10 minutes. It's a lot of time, but you won't make it out of the woods. My traps make sure of it. And don't bother yelling for help either, since we are the only 2 people in this town. He said, turning to face you, before turning back and cleaning his rifle. All you have to do is make it to dawn, and I'll let you walk free, he said as you open the shed door. You exit the shed to a pitch black sky, no moon to shine in front of you, and the only sound you can hear is the howling of the wind. Following his rules, you run far into the forest and try to hide in the safety of the tree branches above. After waiting for a little bit, you hear a bullet fire into the sky, and the man yelled, "Ready or not, here I come." You sit still, bringing your legs to your chest and trying to stay as silent as possible. The flashlight attached to his rifle made it easy to see him. As he walked underneath, you could hear him licking his lips and slurping back his saliva. His breathing grew unsteady, and his thoughts went awry. You sit up and try to silently move away, but you slip and fall onto your back, making a thud as you hit the floor. You can see him turn around with his smile gone, and a scorning frown taking its place. "No, no, no, no!" the man says as he walks closer to you. This wasn't how this was meant to go. You were meant to last longer. You were so close to being like him, but you failed. The man went silent and began to drag you by the leg back to the shed. I lied when I said we were the only folks in town, the man said in a sad, monotone voice. Once arriving back at the shed, he opened a door that was hidden by hanging meat. The other side was full of thin and sickly people, all crowding around the door. Don't waste nothing, the man said as he threw you to them and gave one of them a knife. The crowd wasted no time stabbing into your stomach and slicing it wide open. The feeling of their hands ripping at your insides and your blood leaving your body was enough to make you pass out in shock. You have become another number in the Anthropophagist Archives. Current number 376.